Before we start the show, let's hear from one of our sponsors. Their support keeps this show free for you.
Owning a boat comes with a number of perks, like being able to fling your favorite fishing rod around. And here's another perk. Geico's boat insurance covers your boat and your belongings. And with specialist support from agents that are as passionate about boating as you are, there's so much value that you'll want to high-five someone. But not while you're holding your fishing rod. That's a prized possession. So hold on tight with both hands and keep it covered through boat insurance. Get more with Geico.
Thanks for joining me on the Peace and Parenting podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the Peace and Parenting podcast. I'm Michelle. I'm glad you're here. I wanted to read a review on Apple iTunes from a follower who says, "Hi, Michelle. I wanted to express my gratitude for your amazing podcast. It has changed our family life at home in such a positive way. Our house is now calmer, happier, and more carefree. Thank you for your amazing work and all you do for everyone out there." Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I really, really do. It means the world to me. So thank you for leaving these kind reviews and the feedback. It fuels my soul and keeps me going. Thank you, everybody out there. Okay. I wanted to talk about this sneaky little idea called lecturing and how lecturing can sometimes be thought of by children as punishment. Meaning, sometimes we feel like we need to reason or lecture our children when they do something wrong. We feel like we need to come in and tell them all the reasons why in which the thing that they did wrong was wrong. So we go into lecture. You can't hit your brother like that. Do you see what it's done to him? It's very unkind. We don't use our hands like that at home. And sometimes it can be a very, calm and gentle lecture, but nonetheless still a lecture. Other times it's stronger, like, "You're supposed to come in at midnight. How dare you come in past midnight? We were worried sick about you." And we get very angry and lectury. But nonetheless, the lecture can be thought of by the child as getting in trouble, right? So they have done something wrong or something that we don't like. And instead of a punishment or a consequence or somehow, doling out some sort of punitive measure, what we dole out is a lecture. And sometimes that lecture becomes reasoning, like, these are all the reasons why what you did was wrong. Now, why do we suppose that this is considered a punishment? Why do we suppose that it's considered, something negative that a child would feel? Even if it's done in a very kind and thoughtful way, what we think is a thoughtful way, it is definitely perceived by our children as more shame, right? We're really pointing out all the things that the child has done wrong, and that can create shame. And so when a child experiences shame, where do they go? They go to self-criticism, they go to self-doubt, they go to beating themselves up. And often we don't need to give them the lecture or the reasoning or the correction, because more than likely they know what they've done wrong and that it is wrong. And they know all these things you're likely telling them, like, "Look at your brother. He's really upset. That wasn't kind. We don't use our hands on our brothers and sisters. We have to be loving. Hands are not for hitting." Like all the things that we say, more often than not, our child already understands those ideas. So I guess that begs the question, and then I'm going to get into what we can do instead, but I guess that begs the question as to why. Why do we want to point out our child's wrongdoing? And I think there's this mindset that if we don't point out their wrongdoing, somehow they will grow up to be a person who hits everyone or somebody who's unkind to folks. And that if we aren't the ones to correct their behavior after the behavior has happened, that we're letting them get away with it. And I don't know if I believe that to be true. I don't know if we're letting them get away with it. I believe that they are not behaving in these ways because it's premeditated or that they are unkind people, or that somehow it's an indication of their morality and that morality needs to be corrected. I believe that their prefrontal cortex, which, by the way, we've said many times, is not fully developed until their mid-20s, some people saying 28, and that they're immature and they don't understand how to resolve conflict, and they have low frustration tolerance, and they are inexperienced, and they live in fear often. And so they respond in ways that aren't necessarily mature. But that is to be expected because they're children. And I think the lecture and the reasoning and the coming with the kind of the disappointment is not giving them the space to sink into and also to be okay with their mistakes. And when we lecture or reason or explain to a child all the things that they've done that are wrong, we make it very hard for them to, see mistakes as a positive thing, which in all reality, they really are not a bad thing. And I think also we don't allow our children to see them just as mistakes, because when we go to the reasoning and the lecturing, we're really saying you're bad. You're not right. You aren't doing the right thing, which could very well be true. But do they need that thrown in their face while they're doing this thing or directly after they've done this thing? And even if we come with the gentlest, most, kind thought process, depending on the child, a very sensitive child like my strong-willed Esme, who's sensitive and strong-willed, she doesn't take kindly to that. That really hurts her. She immediately goes to, and I know there's lots of kids like this, she immediately goes to, you don't like me. You're not on my side. You don't trust me. You are judging me. You are, against me. And so I don't want her to believe those things. And I also do not believe that the correction, the lecture, the reasoning actually helps her learn to do better. What I think it does is it creates this place where she's judging herself and coming down on herself. So what can we do instead?
We are going to take a short break from our show to hear from our sponsors. Without their sponsorship, I wouldn't be able to bring you the Peace and Parenting podcast free of charge. So I'll see you back in just a few minutes.
Owning a boat comes with a number of perks, like being able to say ahoy or land ho and not feel weird about it. So here's another perk. Geico's boat insurance offers access to the largest towing fleet on the water. And with specialist support from agents that are as passionate about boating as you are, there's so much value that you'll want to say, shiver me timbers, and not feel weird about that either. Get more with Geico.
Are you sick of the sibling fighting? Are you tired of asking your child to do the same thing over and over and over again, only to end up using threats and bribes to try to get them to cooperate? Well, it doesn't have to be like that. You can learn the ideas of connection through our Connected Parent Mastermind group coaching program. We meet 3 days a week. Myself and my 2 coaches hold meetings. We also give you access to all of my online materials, meaning 10 modules of instruction, PDFs, podcasts, and my book. You get to join our school community and interact with coaches and myself and so many parents who are doing this work just alongside you. So if you're feeling stuck, or if you want to accelerate your connected parenting practice even further, join the Connected Parent Mastermind. Click the link in the show notes for more information. Okay, back to the episode.
I talk a lot about the pause. I've talked a lot about, not responding when kids say something unkind or do something unkind. Now, there's lots of things kids do wrong, right? There's lots of things people do wrong. There's lots of things we do wrong. So all interventions will be nuanced. But here are some ideas that I think might be helpful. So If two children are in a physical altercation, I like to get my body in between these kids, like my whole body in between, and say, hold on, guys, what's happening here? Like, I'm going to put my body in the way so that they can't continue to hurt one another. And then I like to go to the aggressor first, and I like to say, what happened here? What's going on here? And get their response, and just let them talk. Really let them talk, and really let them say all the things. They're going to say nasty things. They're going to say bad things about their sibling. They're going to say things that aren't nice and maybe are quote unquote wrong. And there could be lots of places where I could correct and teach and reason and lecture and go on, but I don't. I let them be heard. And then I ask their sibling, what's going on your end here? How do you see things? And I really let that other sibling really say what they choose to say too. And I don't correct, and I don't try to get to the bottom of things, and I don't try to fix anything, but I really sit and let those opinions or feelings or sides of the story be heard. I'm not trying to get to the bottom of it. And then for kids over 3 or 4, I really say, like, what can we do, guys? What can we do to fix this? How can we make this better? And I try to move them into problem solving. And this protocol takes lots of time. You might have to do this a couple hundred times. You might have to do this very often to get them to start to learn how to, critically think about their upsets and start to learn conflict resolution. How can they figure it out? We don't need to be the judge and jury. So in those moments, I don't talk about who hit who or why they hit. I gloss over that because it is not important. And in a sibling relationship, I'm sure a sibling A has hit. I'm sure a sibling B has hit. I'm sure sibling A has been wrong. I'm sure sibling B has been wrong. And they didn't mean it. They didn't. They're children. They are not violent. They might be aggressive. They might be, responding out of fear, but they're not violent people. And so the more you correct it and the more you point it out to a child who is the aggressor, kind of the more that aggression begins to happen. And it really is hard on the other child because then they become the target of it when we pit one against the other. So in that kind of situation, that's what I like to do. Now, in a situation where a child was being unkind to me, saying something like, you're so dumb, or I hate you, or, all the things that kids say when they're off track, I really try to lean into holding space for that, not responding to it, especially in that moment. That is not the moment to respond to that. Now, if it happens often, there could be conversations days later, could be, if we think it's absolutely necessary. But I still say, and I stick to this idea that they know it's wrong when they say, I hate you. They know it's wrong when they say, you're so dumb. They know it's wrong when they roll their eyes. They know it's wrong when they stomp off. They know it's wrong when they slam the door. They know all of that is not right. Just like us. You yell at your kid, you know it's wrong. Do you need someone telling you, oh, Cindy, you yelled at your kid. You know you shouldn't do that. Look how it makes him feel. Oh, yeah, look, he's really upset about that. How would you like it if someone treated you like that? Now, is that the way you want someone to come to you after you've yelled at your kids? I don't. I would be pissed because I'm in a fight, flight, or freeze kind of situation and I'm on the freight train and I'm going. And if you said that to me, I'd be so pissed. I don't need somebody to tell me that I yelled at my kids and it was wrong. I need someone to say, I understand. I know we all get there. I'm right here. And that's precisely what our kids need when they do the wrong thing, when they yell at us or when they say something unkind. They need us to hold space. So thinking about what is it that you would want in a moment where you yelled at your kids or you said something wrong to your kids, what would you want someone to say to you? Would you really want them to give you a lecture or tell them how disappointed they are in you? Or tell you all the reasons why what you did was wrong, the ramifications of it, the science behind it, what it does to a child's nervous system? Do you need to hear that stuff right now? Sure, you might need to hear that stuff outside of those moments, and it might be helpful to lean into that stuff if you're seeking it out. But do you want whoever's close to you, who's closest to you, saying that stuff to you right after you've done something wrong, I really kind of doubt it. And I don't think that it helps you. And more importantly, I don't think it tells you that what you did was wrong. I don't think it corrects you, rather. I don't think it helps you do better next time. I think it puts you on the defensive and makes you make more mistakes because now you're offline completely. And now you go to guilt and shame, just like your kids go to guilt and shame. Guilt and shame is already built into us. It happens naturally. You yell at your kids, you immediately feel guilty. I know you do because I've been there. And so we don't need any more than that. That's all we need for our correction, especially if we come from families that punished mistakes. We go to major guilt and shame and embarrassment and self-hatred and all the things. We don't want our kids to do that. So when my kids are saying something sassy, I let it sit there. I don't say anything. I don't leave. I don't get mad. I don't get wounded. I hold space for it. I really hold space for it. And it's not easy, let me tell you, because what's running through my head is, if I did that in my house, my dad would have literally put his hand through the drywall, which he had done in my childhood. He would lose it. How dare my children speak to me like that? I would never have been allowed to speak like that. I would have been throttled one way or another. So it's hard to maintain perspective when we're coming to parenting in such a different way than we were parented. But so when my child says something unkind or mean, I hold space. When they say something unkind or mean to a friend and they recount it to me, I also hold space. When they tell me that they did something wrong, like, they've done something sneaky with a friend, or they've done something I know they shouldn't, I hold space for that too. Now, if it's something where I know they're not off track, sometimes I like to ask some probing questions. Oh, well, what happened? Well, what happened then? Well, what did you guys do? Oh, interesting. Were you scared? What do you think about that? And maybe I can get them to start thinking about things if they're online and if they're recounting an old story, or if there's a space for it. So all this is very nuanced. But what I don't do is go into lecture, and I go into reasoning and go into tell them all the things they've done wrong and go into correction. So I'd say if you can find that spot where you can hold space, where you can become neutral, where you can not be mad at them for the thing that they've done wrong and go to a lecture or reasoning, that you will keep the shame away, and then hopefully they'll be able to self-correct better. All right. I hope this was helpful around the idea of lecture and reasoning. Thanks for joining me on the Peace and Parenting podcast, and I'll see you guys next time.
Owning a boat comes with a number of perks, like being able to fling your favorite fishing rod around. And here's another perk. Geico's boat insurance covers your boat and your belongings. And with specialist support from agents that are as passionate about boating as you are, there's so much value that you'll want to high-five someone. But not while you're holding your fishing rod. That's a prized possession. So hold on tight with both hands and keep it covered through boat insurance. Get more with Geico.